Putting that out. What a disaster. What a disaster. Anyway. Let's do it.
Another area where we can see some weird comps, one support on the attacking side is pretty common here, Ham. But looking at these teams right here on Junkertown, who do you give the advantage to, and do you like these comps?
That's a twofer, Boop. So
Okay, so obviously Boop's asking, to my understanding that Ham is more of a color caster in this case, I believe. So straight away, like, I don't mind the, oh my god, these players. Didn't say Line Pro? Fucking hell, I really should watch more of this stuff. Thanks for the host. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I like the question, sort of asking what you think about those comps. Can be a little bit more specific, I think, as time goes on. Like, you might know, you might also know what you think about the comps as well, but you can maybe try, this is just a light tip, you can maybe try and make the question a bit more specific about how you think they're going to interact. Also, I mean, you can only examine the defensive composition, right? So you probably, best that you ask what do you think about the defense setup here, because you might give, you know, the audience an idea that the attacking comp is sort of set in stone. Yeah, didn't say on an EU team. Yeah. Crazy.
Do it like these comps. So it's going to be Morningstar's blue on the defense right off the bat, and this is very unusual. I don't, the jury's still out. I've definitely seen Reinhardt defenses work out really well. The only issue here is that you're putting your body on the line in order to get shielding.
That's really good. You're going to explain this to me. You almost sort of said that we'll see how this works out, which would have been a little slap on the wrist from me, because obviously you have an opinion on that, so you should sort of give me that one, and which you're doing, which is great.
For your team versus the static shield from an Orisa per se. However, if you are going to be coordinating with the big ones, Zarya and Line Pros Brigida, this could work out quite well. Ooh, intelligent Sonic Arrow from Wayfast, just going to scope out and find out the defense just hiding around that first cut corner on the left. So now, not only Dan is going to...
You could be a little bit more brief with that, I think. It's still a good point. You know, obviously, this is a great time for you to be talking, I think. Like, so this is... I already know this is going to be quite good, by the way, guys. So you might find that I'm a little bit more nitpicky than usual, than perhaps last time, because I think this was probably going to be a little bit better product overall. But yeah, so you point out that they use a Sonic Arrow first. You can be a little bit more brief on that explanation, just that they're trying to make sure that no one's playing close or whatever, right? We got Farah on attack here, which is obviously really interesting. So this might be because they've seen the comp.
To know exactly where to shell down with this Farah, but they're not going to be caught off guard once again. Twals this time around on the Bastion. He's still smart, and he's still stinging from that early gank on Hanamura.
This is fine. I think it was mildly monologue, but I think the throw here is fine. I think heading it back to him is pretty good. You're talking reasonably fast. All right. I think. Thank you for the sub, Aussie Girl Game. I appreciate it. I've got to say this every sort of stream. In the past, I've only streamed sort of like once in a blue moon, and I've sort of discouraged subbing. I want to offer you guys like maybe a reason to sub, and I think that me only streaming every now and then is not great, but that's not up to me. Hopefully, I can stream a little bit more in the future, and then it will make more sense. So, thank you for the sub.
Yeah, exactly. And I love these divas just going face to the Ferris in the air. It's like they're almost there and they never quite make it and then fall straight to the ground. But, you know...
Yeah, I mean, like just saying that you like it when divas get aggressive on Farahs. It's fine. It's just like, I'm not super sure. You're trying to say like, oh, I like it how divas get so close to the Farahs and then don't quite get there. You're talking like... this a little bit there as well, so you know you're making a personal anecdote, but then you're sort of taking a while to sort of just make it, and it's not super strong, which is fine. It's a minor thing.
This president trying to set up on to the point, and as of right now, not very successful.
Try to be more specific. Just call it payload.
The way that's successful at clicking heads, you know, seems to be a pretty streaky player, and starting off with the headshot is going to make him feel really good about himself and his Widow play thus far. And what's really interesting about Morningstars right now is that they're trapped in the room that they started on because of that great Sonic Arrow and that vision that was provided, and because of all of those things that happened at the beginning of the game, the vision, getting trapped in the room, the Farah, and finally 12's getting set up. We have Ward probably going to get this first point.
So I assume, Boot, that you're doing the play-by-play here in this. Talked for too long, I think. So, I mean, well, let's go back over the fight, and I'll maybe just try and point out the more pertinent parts of the fight that may or may not have been covered.
The way that's successful at clicking heads, seems to be a pretty streaky player, and starting off with the headshot is going to make, him feel really good about himself and his Widow play.
I think you could, this is a great opportunity. Like, you're talking about, like, the way fast is maybe a little bit streaky. I think if you're more experienced, or if you're spending sort of more time casting, you probably know that this shit's about to hit the fan. It's about to hit the fan pretty badly because there's a Pharah with a barrage and everyone's stuck in the small room. So this is a great opportunity to develop some suspense, to what's happening, because it's like, oh my god, the payload's gone past them. Like this is like, you see, this is super bad for the blue team. They got completely outpicked, by the way. Like, for whatever reason, the attackers knew that they wouldn't have to worry about a Widowmaker so much, or whatever, because it's obviously super strange that you're going to see like a Pharah on attack on this map. It just, there's no reason for it unless you're expecting the team to play this same comp, which is just killing me. But we see a lot of teams play it. They're 303. So this is like bad. So, you could probably build suspense around the fact that these guys are about to get clobbered
thus far. And what's really interesting about
so you jump into, and what's really interesting, it's like this is maybe not the time to, like, hey, let's like go dive deeper into the topic, because you're not in between fights necessarily, especially not here. You got to be having a feeling that you're on the precipice of something. Like this is first of all not a standard situation that you see, at least not what I'm used to seeing. You could see that there's a Pharah with the ultimate, and like your Overwatch brain should be telling you, this is going to get ugly. and it does, because Pharah, not only does she counter the tits off of this composition, but she has ult, and they have to filter out of a very small aperture. So this is not where you start yelling your head off. This is not where you start going, oh my god, it's ridiculous. But it's like, I'd just be like, what is going on right now? This is pretty insane.
Now, Morningstars right now is what they're
I think I heard Evie react there in the background, which is fine, by the way. I like that.
trapped in the room that they started on because of that great Sonic arrow.
So yeah, I mean, it's a minor thing, but like your cadence of speech hasn't changed at all. And despite there being an event in the game that, in my opinion, is maybe warranting a bit more of a reaction from you. So that way, instead, if you're going ham about this already, well, not ham, but if you're somewhat excited about this, you are. The game is already sort of taken a turn for the more interesting, but you've not maybe conveyed that as well as possible to the audience. So, you know, maybe a viewer doesn't see this coming. Maybe someone doesn't notice that Pharah has a barrage. Maybe they don't see that. So like, it is your job to sort of say, look out for this, or this is like, give them a reason to watch. Like if we're about to see something big go down, like you want to be telling the viewer like, hey, get ready for this. It's going to be good. And they're like, oh, what? And then it happens and everyone's like, oh, poggers. So that's it. They're trying to be a little bit more faster on your feet with that kind of stuff and reacting to this stuff. I'm always grunting and yelling. Me too, actually, Evie. I always do it under mat or over mat, which is fine. I think it's just authentic. So.
And that vision that was provided in because of all of those.
Okay, so you're almost, Chris, you've almost moved into like a retrospective analysis of the situation, and you can do analysis from here because the fight's already over. Like, I do want to be switching to a sort of a breakdown of analysis, but I want you to be sort of saying, oh my god, everyone just got wrecked, and then I'd like Evie to step in there and explain, like, you know, how we got to there or why this even happened.
Things that happened at the beginning of the game, the vision, getting trapped in the room, the Pharah, and finally 12.
This is all good. This is all fine, by the way. Like, just because you're saying it doesn't mean it's wrong to say. You know, it doesn't mean you can't say it because you're not strictly the analyst, but it's a good opportunity there to pass along. You guys both monologued pretty hard. Well, not pretty hard, but reasonably well, like early on. So mobility as a caster is important. You'll be able to react to shit on the fly.
Set up. We have ward. We're probably going to get this first point.
Yeah, bullets, rockets, bears. Oh my, running.
And it's like, you know, all right. You know, I'm feeling pretty placid. You know, I'm cruising. It's like, oh, it looks like, and like your cadence. Listen to your cadence when you end that sentence. Where are we? 1:19:32, 25. Listen to how you end this sentence.
Being set up. We have ward. We're probably going to get this first point.
Yeah, bullets.
See that? And this is not necessarily a problem. because there might not be a contest. There may be a contest, but what happens is you end on like a high to low, well, not high, but you end on a lower cadence, right? And then listen how Evie comes in.
It's Rockets, Bears, oh my, running triple DPS here on the attack with we have Orb, Twals now setting up this sneaky Bastion flank.
She's like reacting like, oh my. So what you've done is that you've sort of taken the emotion or the cadence of the casting down a notch. And what Evie's still reacting with some sense of surprise to what actually happened in that fight. And then like you have this kind of weird disconnect where you are, you know, you're sort of slowing it down and then Evie's sort of spinning back up. And I believe that she sort of provides a fairly cursory breakdown of what happens, but I can't tell from this view, and you guys might not be able to either, whether there will be another contest. Judging by their composition, it is possible. So, yeah, just be mindful, Chris, that you know, it is going to be up to you to really nail the exciting stuff home or the unusual stuff. It doesn't even have to be like next level play, but if there's anything that's out of the ordinary, then you have a great opportunity to highlight that to the audience and give them a reason to watch. Casters, we have to add value somehow to the experience, right? I talked about this in my previous VOD review, and one way of doing that is giving the audience a reason to watch. And while they're already watching, then you want to give them a reason to care. So, you know, building up that previous fight will definitely help a lot with doing that. Some people don't need a reason to care. Some people are, you know, a lot of viewers are smart enough to see why this is important, but you should still try and do that.
Yeah, bullets, rockets, bears, oh my, running triple DPS here on the attack with we have Orb, Twals now setting up this sneaky Bastion flank. I love this. Throw something unusual here, running solo tank, solo Winston tank, so no shielding whatsoever for Twals, but...
I'm just going to go over that breakdown again for everybody.
Now setting up this sneaky Bastion flank. I love this.
So you love this. All right. I want to know why.
Something unusual here, running solo tank, solo Winston tank, so no shielding whatsoever for Twals, but there's so many DPS from every single angle. Where do you look? Dragon Knight is going to look at...
I think your explanation of this is fine. Like I think that's good, right? Like, why do you like this? You said it's unusual, right? Which is what I want to hear. I want to hear that something is not standard, because if I'm not watching a bunch of Overwatch, this could just be another day at the office for me, and I don't really want to watch another day at the office. Now the throw here is tricky, right? Because there's a team fight happening while you're still making your point, and this is naturally a product, in my opinion, of Chris extending his sort of a breakdown of like what happened with that barrage fight. So now you're in a little bit tricky position where naturally, like, there is a recontest, and it's important, right? Because the defending team have a chance to actually hold here and tries to do something about this. So I'm a normie caster. I get called a normie all the time, but I'm pretty sure that's just by people that have body pillows. All right.
Ever for Twals, but there's so many DPS from every single angle. Where do you look? Dragon Knight is going to look at Twals and then obliterate him. But
okay, yeah. So you know, there's so many DPS everywhere. You're still sort of doing analysis, and then the fight has proper started here. So I either want you to shift gears a little bit for me or pass it, and you kind of do. You sort of say, and they're gonna, you know, there's DPS everywhere you look, and oh, this is who you're looking at, yada yada. So I want to see where we go in this fight.
Fight is still on for this point.
Yeah, Coalescence 4 dance is available.
Try not to take it with yeah. Try not to, you know, try not to pick up with yeah, absolutely, or anything like that. Just jump in.
As well, love seeing those healing orbs get thrown out. Sometimes I don't remember if that's a move in the game or not, but right now Waypass is going to...
What are you talking about?
Continue his streak and open up the point once again for the rest of We Have Org.
All right, so I'm going to assume again that you don't have direct access to like what you're looking at. What we're looking at now is not what you're looking at. We can do a little bit more with this play-by-play, I think.
Ever for Twals, but there's so many DPS from every single angle. Where do you look? Dragon Knight is going to look at Twals and then obliterate him, but the fight is still on for this point.
So what? Okay, so Twals is down, right? So this is a great time. I like sort of, you know how in traditional sports, how like people say like what the score is, right? And they sort of tell you the score quite frequently. If you get thrown to a fight that's midway through, something to try, Chris, is to tell people how many players are left. So say, well, it's a 5v5 or a 6v5. Now, you should probably say 6v5 favoring 18. That's a kind of a good way to start because you already have established that there's already been a kill that's happened, even if maybe you know, Ham to a degree has already sort of acknowledged that or called that. And then yeah, so try and I don't know what view you're looking at, but again, I recommend that you try and go for a aerial view of the situation, so you can start casting about people's positions and events occurring relative to a location. So say like on the payload or off to the side or something like that. Let's see what the play. This is where I do want. This is me as a play-by-play kind of focused guy. I do want fairly solid play-by-play. I want this coalescence to be called. You know, looking at the other ults up there, there's probably not too much else. There could be an infrasight mid-fight, but yeah.
Yeah, Coalescence for Dance is available as well. Love seeing those healing orbs get thrown out. Sometimes I don't remember if that's a move in the game or not, but right.
Yeah, okay, so you mentioned the Coalescence, which is good. Healing orbs going out are biotic orbs, remember. So you try and be correct with your... is it biotic orb, right? It is biotic orb. Jeez, that'd be ironic if I was telling you to be correct and I had it wrong. Because if you say healing orbs going out, you could also be referring to Orb of Harmony there. This part of the fight is not the time for a personal anecdote about you... Oh, the sarcasm, gotcha. Yeah, it's not the time for a personal anecdote. I don't think it's definitely time for buttoning down with a bit of play-by-play here. And again, not reading the kill feed necessarily, but trying to, you know, look at the fringe elements of the fight and sort of how it's swinging. You know, we see like the, you know, this position's really strong for the Widow. If the camera's on the Widow, if you don't know the camera's not on the Widow, it's fine. But I think you lose a lot of time making this analogy. So
now Waypass is going to continue his streak and open up the point once again for the
payload. Try and I mean, open up the point also is a little bit non-specific. You know, like he kills Lucio. Now you can sort of mention that instead of opening up the point, he's reducing the available healing or something like that. HQ Bro, thanks for the biddies. Appreciate it, fam. Thank you.
The rest of We Have Org going to try to shoot through that shield. And one thing that I loved that Uber said, I forget who it was in Owl, might have actually been Hex, to shoot through the shields because sometimes they toggle them down and you get that headshot. So, you know, it's something that you want to try to do. Just because shield's up doesn't mean that you need to stop shooting. And as of right now, Wayfast getting some good body shots, not a lot of headshots, but Dragon Eddie...
It was probably Hex that said that.
Going to get 2 kills in record speed, but Yofi's going to decide to res Danid instead of a 12s here, and I do agree with that decision as Bastion's going to take a little while to get set up, and what we thought was a probably 0.1 has turned into 0.15 meters. It's pretty much just a penny and some chains, and that Earthshatter is probably only going to hit the penny that was left on the ground as no one falls because of it, as Waypass is going to continue with his player streak. 5 players so far, and right now it's just a war of attrition. Spawns are going to be able to favor the offense, and finally, after 0.15 meters felt like 5,280 feet, we finally get the point.
I think that was pretty good. The play-by-play is not bad. I see you like to sit back on it a little bit more, which is fine. There was obviously that second sort of personal analogy in there, which is okay. I mean, if that is sort of your style and you sort of like to sit back on it a little bit more, that's sort of fine. I feel like that's a little bit sort of more similar to Doa's approach there. You probably do want to avoid going for too many of those personal analogies there. I do like, you know, the humor at the end there, mentioning sort of how long I get there. Let's zip back through the fight once more, just the last part of it.
What we thought was a probably 0.1 has turned into 0.15 meters. It's pretty much 2 kills in record speed, but Jofi's going to decide
2 kills. I mean, was that the Zarya? Yeah, perhaps. Jofi.
To res Danid instead of a 12s here, and I do agree with that decision.
Yeah, I think it's fun using names. I think in a fight like this, you can almost refer to the name of the hero, bringing back the Farah instead of the Junkrat. I think also, I can't tell, but I think the res might have come in too late to get the resurrect there. We're casting. Well, I mean, this is a relevant question, I see, so I can do it here. When casting Overwatch, would you recommend ignoring the kill feed altogether, or just prioritizing as the least important? It is the least important visual element. It is because otherwise you start using it as a crutch. I think I use it when there's like multi kills that happen off camera, or like in the middle of a team fight. Quite often, I'm looking at a different. I might not look at program. I might look at an overhead cam if we don't have an overhead cam. The reason we have first-person view sometimes in team fights is because people obviously like that. I find it very hard to cast from first-person view all the time because it doesn't really tell me a whole lot. I will use the first-person feed if I'm discussing a certain player and their objective or their role in that fight. But if there's a bunch of shit hidden in the fan, I would try and use it. In terms of player names and character names, is there a general rule as to when to use each? I would say, Chris, because you're talking about a decision between resurrecting two different heroes, then you probably want to refer to the hero, right? Because it's an extra step for the audience to go and sort of look. When you're using a kill feed, say Jofi, kills X or Y, that's also fine. Sometimes I say like the big one kills Jofi and that's a mercy down now for the defending team. So I add a little bit of context there. If you say like the Jofi opts to resurrect way fast instead of damned, to a viewer that's not like hella familiar with these guys, it might be a little bit harder. In the Overwatch League, it's probably not as bad. Like if someone tells me they're going to resurrect Jonark instead of Pine, I kind of get that straight away. That's just my impression, sort of reading it. Do I put on stage, make up the stream on Twitch, bro? Of course not. Are you good? Are you good, fam? All right.
As Bastion's going to take a little while to get set up, and what we thought was a probably 0.1 has turned into 0.15 meters. It's pretty much just a penny and some change, and that Earth Shatter is probably only going to hit the penny that was...
Yeah, there's probably a quicker way of saying it's super close, I suppose. It's a little bit verbose.
Left on the ground.
Okay, I can't talk. A better way of putting it is it's a little bit roundabout way of saying how close they are. You might be able to trim that a little bit.
No one falls because of it, as Wayfast is going to continue with his...
Thanks, Sandshark.
Players so far.
I'd like to get back to
right
Oz.
Now, it's just the war of attrition. Spawns are going to be able to favor the offense. And finally, after 0.15 meters felt like 5,280 feet, we finally get the point.
I don't know how much 5,280 feet is. Bro, you're mixing metric systems up. No, that was good. I like that you sort of mentioned that it is a war of attrition there. It's a good way of like a viewer to visualize what's actually happening in this fight. To sort of realize that it's a mile. Okay, thank you. I don't think in Americanness. Good to know. Though. Good to know. Yeah. So. That was decent. You sort of break it down. I do want to hear the fight breakdown now because we had a fairly light play-by-play. I'd be interested to hear what our underpinning processes were that resulted in this outcome, if at all.
Wait, did you like the change in numerical system? By the
yeah,
way?
no, 20,000 leagues to the first checkpoint. Yeah, if we're going hard,
I appreciate that.
Leagues, man, not miles.
Thank you.
But
I appreciate
we saw, okay, the difficulty there. The reason that it stretched out so long was that there wasn't a whole lot of shield break to speak of on the side of We Have Org. However, they have so much long range damage, and there was none coming from the defense, so they could literally do nothing but just take the spam. They couldn't push out themselves, try and get the attackers away, as we saw that Wayfest was camping there the whole time. Now it's going to be particle effects galore, though, on the payload. Midna, the first one.
I'm pretty happy with that breakdown, Evie, I'll be honest. Let's go back again and just check it.
Hard. We're going leagues, man, nautical miles. Yeah, but no, I mean, we saw, okay, the difficulty there. The reason that it stretched out so long was that there wasn't a whole lot of shield break to speak of on the side of We Have Org. However, they have so much long range damage, and there was none coming from the defense, so they could literally do nothing but just take the spam. They couldn't push out themselves, try and get the attackers away, as we saw that Wayfest.
Yeah, so your point is really cogent. It's good. I can definitely appreciate it. Just a little. It's a little unwieldy the way you explain it. Like, it's probably a little bit better just to say like the defending team didn't actually have any poke damage or the ability to interact at long range. So all they could really do was turtle up or just sort of sit and sort of try and hide behind their shields. That's pretty nitpicky. I think that like it's a correct explanation. Can't really follow any of that, to be honest. I'm happy with that. So it's good.
Versus camping there the whole time. Now it's going to be particle effects galore, though, on the payload. Midna, the first one down. Not looking so hot for the defense, but they have plenty of time. Over 3 minutes, so there's no back off for now.
Yeah, and three minutes is it's almost like an hour for point B. Sometimes we see teams get held here, but most of the time point B is over in the blink of an eye, and the big one is gonna blink and kill past him.
Okay, so obviously there, like it's not that fight wasn't worth play-by-playing because there's just a pick and it's sort of over. You sort of mentioned, Chris mentions there that like point B can sort of be very short or very long. Really want to know why that is, especially because if we're going to be sharing thoughts, I guess, or like I guess opinions or stuff like that, definitely want to know like why that is, So if you can tell me why sort of it feels long sometimes, then that's really good. You can just sort of say, like, it could be such a grind, and you can maybe explain sort of some of the interactions that result in it being rather laborious to make progress here.
Himself, fire in the hole, guys. We're gonna watch this tire do some tire parkour as Junkrat squats, works on those glutes and works on that depth on.
What? What are you saying? That's that. Okay. No, I mean I don't hate that. I want to go back and just see what exactly you were saying.
The big one is gonna blink and kill past himself. Fire in the hole, guys. We're gonna watch this tire do some tire parkour as Junkrat squats, works on those
Chris
glutes and works on that depth on dance.
Tires doing
that's
tire
gonna be
things, man.
exactly. That's gonna be an opening for We Have Org here, but the graviton surge.
Okay, I get what you're saying. you're referring to the fact that Junkrat was crashed. That's fine. Maybe as that is happening, what might be good would be to explain like how impactful it can be in this fight. I think like you have an opportunity there. Was it a blue team Riptide? Was it? It was a blue team Riptide, right? Let me go back.
Damn.
Double check.
Tires
Yeah. Okay. So in this moment, you're Riptiring like a merciless team, so you can't resurrect the Riptire kill, right? So this Riptire can be much more impactful, against a team that is running this sort of particular composition, right? Because you can't bring them back. I also sort of mention if there's someone with a Mercy is getting Riptide, I sort of say we got to kill the Mercy, or we need to kill 2 players with the Riptide to sort of make it worthwhile. So there's probably you could decide, like, you could decide to, to sort of try and talk a little bit more about what's at stake with that kind of play. I don't really hate the Junkrat squat thing. If you're gonna make a joke though as well, really try and make sure it's clear. And obviously, you can always risk sort of being too joke heavy, and then they don't always have the same impact. So these are things that I've sort of dealt with personally over my career as well, finding out the good balance there. Because we're getting plenty of jokes out of you, which is good. Some are going to work, some aren't going to work. So yeah, just be careful about how much of those there are.
Exactly. That's going to be an opening for We Have Org here, but the Graviton Surge is going to come out, and that is going to be the doom of We Have Org there. Wayfast, the only one coming in hot, though. Again, with those spawns, that actually might be huge for We Have Org as a Joki's
okay.
Res. 3 kills, 3 shots, Wayfast. You are a monster.
Cool. I like the play-by-play. I thought that was pretty good. 122, 20, 121. Let's go back.
Oh, guys, we're gonna watch this tire do some tire parkour as Junkrat squats, works on those glutes and works on that depth on dance.
Tires doing
that's
tire
gonna be
things, man.
exactly. That's gonna be an opening for We Have Org here, but
okay, so a lot of shit happens really quickly. Line Pro obviously goes down here. So blue team down only 2 players. They're kind of fucked despite having a grav. Their follow-up damage is they got a Junkrat here.
Graviton Surge is going to come out, and that is going to be
the follow-up was good.
Doom of We Have Org there. Wayfast, the only one coming in hot, though. Again, with those spawns, that actually might be huge for We Have Org as the Joki's going to get the res.
So I think by that point, you sort of say that this might be huge. It is huge. Try and be a little bit more decisive there. Like, they just got fucked. They just got fucked.
3 kills.
Obviously, don't say that.
3 shots, Wayfast. You are a monster.
Dude, you let the Widow stay in the back, and not just any kind. It's not Ham Tornado Widowmaker. It's Wayfast. You can't do that. The call is coming from inside the house, or at the back of your heads in this case. And it looks like We Have Org. They just might sail through. Cass got that finishing kill on.
Okay, so Pretty good. I guess like your breakdown, you're also reacting to it there as well, Evie. I think you got caught up in some analogy, like a phone in the house or back of the head kind of stuff. You can tighten up on that a lot more. I think like this is a great chance to just be like, you could just turn around and be like, you cannot leave a Widowmaker run contested and expect her not to wreck it, or something like that, right? There's a good chance to hit home a very decisive point that maybe isn't obvious to anyone. The reason that fight happened, right, is because they won the fights because Widow just dumped on everyone. I think you're just about to jump into a brief sort of wrap up of the fight, but you'll notice that defenders are actually sort of coming back in now over here. Sorry. And they're going to come out here. So you may have lost time sort of reacting to that. We'll have to see how efficient your use of time is.
To Big One's Junkrat, and so now Big One gonna have to be the big one with this tire. It has to be a multi-kill, otherwise I don't see more.
I see what you're trying to do there, like with the wordplay. It's like it doesn't kind of like about 50% of my wordplay doesn't quite come off that strong. Generally speaking, you should sharpen all your spears, but you don't have to bring them all to the fight necessarily. So you guys are doing a fair bit of work with the people's names and stuff. I think the interplay is quite good. Let's see what your throw is going to be like here, because obviously there'll be a primal rage here, which is going to cause a lot of problems for this Reinhardt unless he gets a shatter.
Morningstar is holding this.
The pelts from inside the house, way fast. You got the tire. That's going to be.
Chris, you couldn't help yourself, could you? Yeah. So obviously, that's a reference, I assume, to like a scary movie, right, where someone's calling you from inside your own house. Yeah. There's a fight happening here, and we want to. I mean, if you're having fun, then you can. It really depends on how serious you're doing it. Like you could sort of work off that kind of joke as well if it's not too serious, but it is like 2-to-1, So you probably want to nail this one. Anyway.
Huge for your team, and right now 4.74 meters until point 2 is taken.
Okay, see, I don't hate that you're referring to distance, but it doesn't. The problem with referring to distance in game, it doesn't have an intrinsic value, or it's not sort of intuitively understood by the viewer immediately. So I'd much prefer you to say that it's really close, because how much is 4.74 meters, really in the grand scheme? Like, obviously, what's a video game meter? I don't know. I'm not really sure. So try and maybe be more specific, in terms of what the people can see, like it's right in front of the gate or, one fight away. Just a minor thing.
Taking 1 minute and 48 seconds, just squats. Actually, no! The point blank tire off of Line Pro. That doesn't do damage to Junkrat, just to you, Line Pro. And the attacking team still has the advantage, as Bandit is rocking that Doomfist once again.
In that case, definitely use We Have Org's name instead of attacking team, I think.
To be scary. Lots of walls here to be working with. As of right now, it's been a little quiet as they say they're going to get a kill on Najini, and they are going to get that second point. 2 minutes and 55 seconds. A pretty good stall from Morningstars.
A good stall from Morningstars, definitely true. Especially.
All right, yeah. So when you get thrown to by Chris, you probably don't have to acknowledge what he said to that degree. Like you actually repeated what he said, and then you said that's true. It's a very minor thing, but trying to eliminate that, just sort of pick it back up, because the assumption here is that you guys are both correct, unless stated otherwise, and that you sort of agree with each other. So it's a little superfluous to sort of say that is true. Oh, you're exactly right. I think you could do it. But obviously you repeated, you repeated and said a good stall, that is true, and then you maybe could just cut that out and just go straight into like why is it a good stall? Like, hopefully we get that here.
Especially given, how quickly it looked like We Have Org may have rolled them through first point, but Dan is going to have that Meteor Strike. He's been doing so much good work on this Doomfist, and even though, sometimes he's not necessarily getting those solo kills, he's just sowing so much discord in the Morningstar's blue backline. You're running Big One on this Widowmaker. You need...
It's good. I guess you opted not to sort of, really give too much analysis on that fight, which is actually fine with me. You probably can, but... if you say it was a good stall, there's maybe an opportunity to say why, but Now you're talking about the Doomfist. I think your explanation right now has been fine.
Some kind of stability for the Widow to feel comfortable enough to go for those shots, but there's a Doomfist, suddenly Doomfist salad in the back constantly, and that is just a very difficult factor.
I think like, you know, talking about sowing discord in the back is great, because it doesn't require you to be overly specific, and yet still you can, you know, give a viewer a good idea of the impact a certain player is having. So it's a term I use myself as well.
For the defense to try and work around.
Ooh, Meteor Strike is going to go down, but not before the Earth Shatter does, and that's going to actually take him down to the ground, but way fast. Once
Take who down to the ground?
again, we called him a little streaky, and the momentum is still on his side, getting 2 kills, pulling this back out for We Have Ord, but we are now at that point where Morningstar spawns are going to be to their advantage, but it doesn't matter, because Minden's going to grab Line Pro's life, as well as Najini's Pulse, going to try to get that high ground. Whenever I try to do that as Junkrat, I miss everything.
Okay, so personal analogy here is fine as long as you sort of keep them limited. The way you casted that fight, I feel, was very general, very overarching, and not very specific to the events that were happening, but more how it fell into the flow or the progress of the entire round. I think you could do this every now and then. It is an important fight because the defenders commit to it, right? So that's probably something where, you know, I'd like maybe a little bit more play-by-play, like specific, I guess, to what's actually going on.
In the back constantly, and that is just a very difficult factor for the defense to try and work around.
Ooh, Meteor Strike is going to go down.
I mean, the throw was good. The pickup was really good.
But not before the Earth Shatter does, and that's going to actually take him down to the ground, but way fast. Once again, we called him a little streaky, and the momentum is...
Yeah, okay, so maybe specifically more about what Wayfast is doing than sort of maybe about, like, checking up on how streaky he has been, because he's on the high ground, and Morningstar's Blue are still playing, like, they're still somewhat stubborn playing, like, the Reinhardt Zarya into this Widowmaker. They have one of their own, but Wayfast has, like, the high ground. Defenders are getting sort of jumped on pretty quickly, and you know, we can mention that. Okay, like you already mentioned, there's a little bit streaky sort of at the start of the game. You can check back in with that assessment, I suppose, but I'd rather not sort of be in the middle of a fight here. You could maybe talk a little bit about what he's doing. You know, that's not streaky. You know, maybe that he's starting to pop off because he killed both tanks in that fight, and in a Zarya Reinhardt composition that provides the bulk of, you know, your utility. So definitely, you know, worth pointing out that he was able to do that. So a little bit more specific, perhaps. I think the scope with which you examine a team fight is quite wide. And I guess it's also this style of casting where you sort of have an observer that you don't necessarily know what they're watching all the time. But get yourself on that free cam and then maybe sort of try and point out the things that sort of are happening. So, because yeah, it's a little bit anecdotal. It's a little bit non-specific.
Still on his side, getting 2 kills, pulling this back out for We Have Ord, but we are now at that point where Morningstar spawns are going to be to their advantage, but it doesn't matter because Minden's going to grab...
Yeah, so, okay, so we're now at the point where the Morningstar spawns are going to be to their advantage. You could probably just trim that down. Just say, Morningstars have a spawn advantage. Well, they spawn close to the point. And then you can use that as a springboard for saying, it's not enough that we have all get 1 or 2 kills in this fight. They need to, you know, get a full fight win or clean them up.
Line Pro's life, as well as Najini's Pulse, going to try to get that high ground. Whenever I try to do that as Junkrat, I miss everything. So I'm always really impressed by those conk jumps. But as of right now, he's going to maintain the high ground, 96% on that tire.
Yeah, I mean, the fight's over. I want Evie to start breaking it down for us a little bit more. And maybe if we trim this analogy away, we don't have it. Tighten it up. Yeah, tighten it up is a good way of putting it. You know, you want to... It's also a stylistic decision as well, to be honest with you. I feel like personally, I'm one of the most specific casters because I had an obsession prior with like catching all the action. And then as time went on, I realized I actually had to loosen it up a little bit because I was like trying to catch everything. And that's where the whole Rap God thing came from initially, because I was like trying to catch all the information. Some of it wasn't maybe as relevant as others. You might be the opposite. I think you might be able to tighten it up a little bit more. And, you know, I want to hear sort of some yeah, a little bit more specific. Like, it's really easy for me to retroactively look at the VOD now and see this view and just cast from that because you might not have it. So, you know, it's a bit tricky.
Ham, this is becoming do or die for We Have Org. A minute 40 seconds might feel like a long time, but on Junkertown, especially here on the last point, it's not.
So we get that again, like a reference to like how long things take. It's tricky to make that point here because the fight's just about to start. I would have liked you to drop out after the fight ended. Evie would give sort of some short analysis, and then you're about to jump in because you, at this point, you have, yeah. So the part, like, I'm the last person that's going to tell you not to wax poetic ever, but it's about identifying the crunch times in a game or in a round, and then the fights that don't matter so much. Because I think that, you know, on the second stage of the map where, like, you know, there was a fight that happened but it was over so quickly, that first fight, and it stayed, like, you know, there was no play-by-play, it stayed on analysis, and I'm super happy with that, right? And you have opportunities to do that then, you know, in between fights. But it's a time and place for this stuff is super important. You don't wax poetic when this is, I would say, this is probably the most important fight here, because if obviously defenders lose it, they're done. If the attackers lose it, they have to sort of set up all over again. It depends on what ults they use in this fight. So, yeah, again, Elite, it's a trap I fall into as someone who radio casted for 2 or 3 years before I started casting, you know, well, not 2 or 3 years, that's a bit long, maybe a year before I started doing this. I did like 214 radio broadcasts before I first started. Yeah, it was in like a year before I first started doing video stuff. So remember that, I mean, it's not, you're not intentionally, you know, you're not intentionally causing your viewers to feel patronized, but you want to try and avoid doing that and then just stick to the important stuff. Developing and filtering a hierarchy of information as you cast is super important. And the next most important step is being able to deliver that in a way that's understood. If you can do those two things, if you can recognize the important stuff and not so important stuff, then you are going to be like at least a Contenders level caster. At least, by doing that. That's not anything against Contenders cards, by the way. That's just like how important it is. And the only way you can do that is with a lot of reps. A lot of reps, a lot of practice, a lot of realizing what worked and what didn't work.
Bull's gonna have to come up huge with this tire. The grab does come out, but Midna saves himself with that Primal Rage. Dan goes down. He was so close to that Transcendence, a crucial sustaining ultimate, but no, Danid takes down the other big threat. Big one, the Widowmaker is out. Line Pro, no healing for this defense. Now, it doesn't matter how highly charged you are, Dragon Eddie, you are also going to be sent back to respawn, and We Have Org are likely going to be finishing this map out with more than a...
Who's the play-by-play caster here? You're both obviously very, you know, able to do both, which is great. And yeah, I see that. Yeah, Chris, you said there was a role swap there. That's okay. It's not a big deal, especially if you like. It's only a problem if you get mixed up if one of the casters can't cast play-by-play. But I want to point something out here, and this is nothing against you, Chris. Evie just gave me the level of excitement that I was sort of hoping to get in some of these fights. You know, and that might be because she was too excited or whatever, but this is really important. Obviously, in that case where you sort of passed over to Evie, you could just keep it, Chris. You can keep the reins if you think it's going to be an important fight. A play-by-play caster, by definition, might have to get greedy sometimes because this game doesn't have like a flow that makes sense. Like in League of Legends, like the analyst gets to jerk himself off for 30 minutes before there's actually play-by-play going on. Well, now at the current league meta, it's a bit different, right? Overwatch is a little bit different. You need to yield to play-by-play a little bit more. But I thought, yeah, I thought that was, as far as play-by-play is concerned, it's good. So if you guys can, I think it's good to focus on a specific role, but being able to do both will ensure continuity in broadcast and will ensure that no one sort of gets left out to dry. So I thought it was good play-by-play. Ideally, you know, it's something that ideally one person would want to be taking care of most of that stuff, but it's fine. Me and Matt sort of, you'll notice that Matt does a bit of play-by-play, but never really for the big fights. We're kind of a bit more like Anders and Semler were in Counter-Strike, where we can both sort of do that play-by-play fights, but there's a slightly more focused play-by-play, a slightly more focused analyst member. Okay.
Minute left. Dana now just looking to send anybody who wants to peek out back, and all the May! He's the wrong side of a fist. There's just one Winston left. And a victory, and that will be round 1 complete. All 3 points.
Okay. All right. So we're excited. We're talking over each other now. So the ending of that one maybe wasn't exactly what you really want.
And Azua crucial sustaining ultimate, but no, Danid takes down the other big threat. Big one, the Widowmaker is out. Line Pro, no healing for this defense now. It doesn't matter how highly charged you are, Dragon Eddie, you are also going to be sent back to respawn. And we have Orc are likely going to be finishing this map out with more than a minute left.
You'd throw here, I think. You're starting to slow down a bit, so this would be the time where you sort of let the play-by-play back in.
Danid now just looking to send anybody who wants to peek out back, and all the May eats the wrong side of a fist. There's just one Winston left between we have Orc and a victory, and that will be round 1.
Too hype, bro. Well, look, I mean, you gotta understand who you're talking to as well. Like, there's not gonna be too many people that I'm gonna say are too hype. So that was good. A little bit muddled when the Doomfist pick came in, but I think like the way that Boop reacted under you was fine. Definitely a chance to throw there. If you're thinking about getting out and allowing the play-by-play to do the play-by-play, that's really important. I don't think that one person should just do, play-by-play, one person should just do analysis necessarily, but there should be someone who by default will step in there. And if you're an analyst doing play-by-play, you should be in the back of your head like, okay, well, I'll try and find a good place to get out here. Not just to say, oh, I had to throw straight away, but it's like, okay, well, I'm now, crossing the other territory, so a good chance to just sort of throw it over. This has been good so far. I'm enjoying it.
Complete all 3 points for the red side.
Now, because what happens now, right? You just sort of now. I need to get analysis on the breakdown of that fight, but also the map from Boop. Otherwise, you might be missing an opportunity to give information that, in my opinion, is essential.
4 seconds left on the time bank, and that last fist to the face against the Mei has got to feel good. Anytime you're able to kill a Mei, I think in general, it just feels...
I just like this.
Anecdotes. So you can mention the importance of the Doomfist pick, but try and do it... attempt to do it slightly more academically in the sense that getting a pick in a fight like this is huge for your momentum as an attacking team, right? Like, you're just making it impossible for the stall to be there. And then maybe like there could be a little bit more there. You mentioned the Doomfist kill, and then you both sort of say, oh, I really like that. That's really good, which is, again, it's fine. It's not very academic. It's definitely more personal. And you are maybe not using this time to... you're not using this time maybe to do justice to some of the strategic approach of that last round, especially team composition, like the Doomfist switch. You probably could talk about the Doomfist in terms of the Doomfist switch, like the impact that was able to have. And like, oh, they started with the Doomfist, now they can threaten a Widowmaker on the high ground. And then it just became a wrecking ball towards the end of the point, allowed them to snowball to victory. You can sort of, because that allows you to tie into a narrative that you previously mentioned. Like you talked about the Doomfist, or Evie did, about, the Doomfist threatening a Widowmaker, making it so a Widowmaker can't actually take these aggressive peaks. And then you have another side of the Doomfist, and another sort of good reason to bring him here is because he can just fuck that Mei right up, which is great because I hate seeing Mei in stalls like that. So, yeah, pretty happy with that. Let's carry on.
Sound, you know what I mean? It's like so satisfying. I think it's like the Reinhardt thing. When you get the charge kill, part of why it feels so good is just like crunch.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Underrated sound in the game is Zarya bubbles getting damage. It's like a normal sound. Take a look.
Do me a favor. Don't cull this kind of interaction from your casting. Please keep that. We spend a lot of time talking about being academic and trying to, hit the right notes, but you have an opportunity here, I think, like to actually have some of that chemistry and that interaction happen. I enjoy it. I think it's quite funny. This is a great chance to inject some of that personality in there. It's a balance thing, right? It really is. Like, you need to have personality, because as a caster, like, if you don't have talent, you're fucked. If you have talent but no personality, you're never going to be top. You're never going to be top level. Right? If you have talent and you have personnel and you have work ethic, you're going to be a great caster. So you guys obviously, we're definitely getting that personality aspect of those three in this moment, and I'd hate that to be culled out just because you're worried about tightening up too much. So time and place, this is fine here. I mean, me and Matt talk a lot of shit on an Overwatch League broadcast. Semmer and Hex talk about movies that literally no one has ever fucking watched. That's also fine. Delwa talks about Wayne Gretzky. Also fine. You need to have these things, right? Otherwise you're boring AF. Can't take yourself too seriously. So I think this is great. This is really great.
You'll appreciate it. It's going to be better than my floors made out of lava story, I promise. But now that we're looking at the two teams, minute 4 seconds, that's actually pretty good here for Junkertown. I mean, just finishing feels great on this map. Morningstars is going to look at potentially rocking those free tanks once again, but way fast the star of that first push, twice bailing his team out.
Yeah, way fast and Danid between the two of them. They picked the platter clean from We Have Org. And Morningstars, they play a very good defense, as we saw there. I mean, able to hold off We Have Org at point A for so incredibly long. They really had no right to, but it was off of some really good, you know, shield and cooldown management from both Luft, Line Pro, and Dragon Eddy. But a good...
I was about to say, like, please tell me why. I think this is okay. It's a little bit non-specific, the cooldown and barrier management. You can maybe expand that a little bit to like a moment or an individual or an approach outside of maybe just like that's sort of maybe one aspect of it. Maybe you can give me more of an explanation here. You've got 30 seconds, and we don't need play-by-play here. We don't even need personality interaction. We can hit some harder analysis here. This is one of the best opportunities you have as an analyst to start to bring some of that stuff out.
Defense does not a map win make, and so Morningstars Blue going to have to try and, you know, rally some of that defensive hunker and bunker into some aggressive, you know, pushing power. We saw them do it on Hanamura when the win condition was clear, get the tank bodies onto the point. But now as we move on to a linear escort map, how do you see this working out? I don't know if Left's going to come out on the mage, debate me once, debate me twice.
Well, I hope he comes out on the main because I love to see the diversity, but maybe it might just be from nope. I try.
I mean, we got a question there that wasn't answered, which is, in my opinion, a big no-no. Even if Evie obviously threw like a little bit of a joke at the end of the question, like I really want that question to be answered. Otherwise, it just doesn't really make any sense. Debate me once. Shame on you. I assume that's what you were going for there. Yeah, I want that question to be answered.
Bodies onto the point. But now as we move on to a linear escort map, how do you see this working out? I don't know if Left's gonna...
I mean, I don't know, maybe it's pretty, like, how do you see this, like, this comp? How do you see this comp working out? Let's try and, if you guys want to have like you guys are good at having a discussion about like random stuff, which is great, I think, but you want to have a discussion about the game. You want to have a discussion about the game as well, and that requires there to be question and answers that are like are treated as a priority, because there's not much worse than like an unanswered question and like, you know, sort of just moving on or ignoring it. It makes a viewer think, was the question not good? It makes it, yeah, maybe more specific in the question. Some of my questions to Matt are not great either, and he can't do much with it. Ordinarily as well, like if one of you is the color caster, then, you know, I do want to hear sort of questions asked of them as well. Just if you're trying to establish yourself in the pairing as maybe more of an expert or more of a person to bring the insight. But you can ask each other. Matt asks me questions sometimes, but he normally prefaces with like, well, you normally ask questions, Mitch, but what do you reckon about that? And it's a way that he uses that not to try and get me to dig out deep analysis. He uses that to try and get me to start a conversation about something with an analytical sense that he can then piggyback off. So sometimes I don't serve him up like the best question. He might want to talk about something, right? But he doesn't want to just go straight off topic. He wants to or make it, you know, give it an organic feel as like a discussion that we're having. And then he can sort of just, piggyback off that. So yeah, asking questions is good. There's never a bad time in my opinion, unless it's in the middle of a team fight. Okay, there is a bad time. Ask questions in lulls as a play-by-play, especially if like you've just cast a fight and then you just want to know, like, for example, like let's just say like we saw that Widowmaker play, right? The 3K. You know, you play-by-play cast the Widowmaker kills and you're like, how impactful was the Widowmaker in that fight? Or how important is it to have that Widowmaker free? Or how much are you punished for not dealing with that Widowmaker? Or something like that, right? And then that gives you an analyst like a springboard, a natural sort of way to dive into that. Yeah, so you can, yeah, I want like less monologue. I really like, and it's hard because you're not doing it. I know you guys, I know you guys sort of live around the same area, or at least you get together to film the 100-hour thing. So, I mean, being in the same vicinity would be ideal. It would definitely take your casting up a level. If that's not possible, that's fine. But really think of it as if you're having a conversation. It's you two and the viewer. It's a 3-person conversation. So color casting is analyst casting, right? You have a desk analyst, you have an analyst caster, which is a color caster. It's the same thing, analyst color. We use them interchangeably. Color caster should be a analyst. Should be like, I want to be able to see a color caster finish casting, get on the desk and do analysis. Same thing.
Come out on the mage. You bait me once, you bait me twice.
Well, I hope he comes out on the main because I love to see the diversity, but maybe it might just be from nope.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of diversity, but I want to know why. And it's slightly disingenuous as like a caster who's obviously supposed to love high level Overwatch to sort of want to see something purely because of diversity. We can discuss that maybe societally, diversity in and of itself is very important. But when we're talking about high level Overwatch, like I want to know, it's not just play Mei because I want to see Mei. It's like play Mei because I want to see them lock it down. And we've seen attacking Mei on this map before. So yeah, we can work more with that.
I try to like...
Question took you off guard? Well, that's fine. And you know, that's something that you guys are going to work on.
So hard, yeah.
Mental gymnastics to try to make it happen, but that's exactly what's not going to happen. And in terms of escorting this, we have Org not getting that hunker down defense. They're actually going to rock that dive defense with Danid on that Genji.
I mean, this is kind of a weird team comp in some ways. It's not a... it's weird. You could say it's quasi, I guess, because they have a Reinhardt. So my understanding is that they really just want to try and control the choke as much as they possibly can. I don't know if Genji's great here. We'll see. It could just be like a personal sort of a way they want to play this particular comp because they got Genji Diva, so they can dive. It's because they want to probably put pressure on the enemy Widow and try and tilt the Widow battle in their favor. No, you can throw questions. Like it's like when you have a conversation with one of your friends. Like you don't like sign a contract and talk about like what you will and will not talk about. Right? You should definitely be able to ask questions. It's just just gotta. I guess you got to be ready for him. You got to be at that level where you're ready for him. Like if you know that maybe Boop is not sort of going to be well equipped in those situations to answer those questions, then yeah, definitely don't ask them. Mixed dive, partial dive. It doesn't like. What does that mean? Like you really want to try and use a word that gives like that has intrinsic meaning or value immediately, right? That people don't have to like read hieroglyphics to try and find out what it means. So, I mean, are they going to dive? Because this composition has a Zen and Widow Reinhardt core. Like, you don't have to have a name for this composition, you know?
Morningstar's, something that we always see is we always see the payload, move into this first bridge area here. We didn't see that last time because Morningstar tried that sneaky defense.
I mean, the payload always moves into that bridge area, right? One way or another. So try and be more specific. Talk about fighting occurring in the choke. Like obviously it didn't happen on the attacking side. Morningstar's Blue couldn't defend in the choke at all. They lost that opportunity because they put themselves inside this fucking building and decided just fucking about. So yeah, you're a little vague on this.
Ended up causing a lot of harm to them and causing harm to the...
Yeah, so you see, this is what this comp's supposed to do, right? They're supposed to fuck the Widow up. They get a bit aggressive here. They jump on the Widow, and then they just try and peel back for the team. So we'll have to see what like Morningstar's Blue do with their dive, which is much more of a traditional dive comp, I would say, with the exception of this Widowmaker here.
One is 12 with a damage boost, I believe, on to that Diva. And so this is going to open it up for the defense. And with this kind of defense that we have, Org is running that dive. The kills should come in just a second, especially with that D-Mech. And Dragon Eddy is going to be the last one to fall for Morningstars before this full reset.
Not a fan of the play-by-play here, Chris. Let's just go back a little bit more. So what happens is they jump on the Widow, right? I know what you mean, Boop. I do. Saying that the fight normally happens there, but like I know what you're trying to say. I can see that you're trying to say it, but you're not saying it, unfortunately. So this fight is they jump on the Widow, and then Morningstar's Blue tries to punish them with a dive, right? Now this should work, right? Except it just doesn't work. Like Cast is getting jumped on here, but he's the only guy that's really vulnerable right now. And does he die? No, he just completely debates the Winston. So Luft.
Open it up for the defense, and with this kind of
and the
defense
D.Va, this
that
D.Va,
Org is running
like
back
Dragon
side,
Eddy just doesn't really do much. He can't realize he can't follow up the dive, so
especially with that D-Mech, and Dragon Eddy is going to be the last one to fall for Morning.
I feel like you're reading the kill feed in this particular fight, or at least not really giving me much of a narrative about how the fight is sort of going.
So hard, mental gymnastics to try to make it happen. Defense with Danid on. The thing that we always see is tries that sneaky defense that ended up.
Yeah, so like as the big one's getting jumped on, like you probably want to see this happening because this is a pivotal moment in the fight, right? It's an aggressive defense. They jump on the Widowmaker, or they try and bait the Widow into, like, you know, coming over the top of this little thing. And this is when they sort of spring the trap, right? This is when the Genji and the D.Va jump in. So this is a moment where you want to start calling that's happening, and that's where you should take the fight from there. Even if you're only on free cam, you gotta mention this.
Causing a lot of harm to them, and causing harm to the big one is it falls with a damage boost.
Because you just said like the big one falls with a damage boost, right? Well. The problem with this is because you didn't see it. Like most of the damage came from the Genji getting up in there as well. Like yeah, it was a headshot from D.Va with a damage boost. But how much does damage boost mean when like you got so much spread, right? So super non-specific there. What's up, Gabriel?
On to that D.Va, and so this is going to open it up for the defense. And with this kind of defense,
so opens it up for the defense.
That we have Org is running that dive. The kills should come in just a second, especially with that D-Mech. And Dragon Eddy is going to be the last one to fall for Morningstars before this full reset.
Yeah. Not much there, unfortunately. We really got to be more specific about that fight. And so, like, you sort of said, like, because of this kind of composition, the kills should come. It's like, you haven't told me anything. I got the kill feed a little bit earlier on, and then it was an interesting sort of fight, but unfortunately, we couldn't be very specific there. The win conditions that Widow can go uncontested for Morningstar's blue. Well, yeah, that's part of it. The thing is that we have Orc have a Reinhardt, right? So it's not the entire win condition. I assume this kind of composition is just trying to take space and then kind of, like, you can force an engagement with this comp. The Tracer wants to kill the Zen. You know, the Tracer wants to just try and get into the backline in some way, but you saw an early recall from the Tracer. I mean, a Widowmaker's win condition is always being uncontested, but if you're going to use win condition, you've got to be a little bit more specific. The whole point, we have Org's win condition is picking the Widow off and then cleaning up the fight, right? The fact is, though, they still could have gone badly for them. They could have traded their Zenyatta for the enemy Widowmaker, given the way that they were playing. Yeah, yep. First picks, like, you honest, like, that's why strategies and team fights aren't as complex as some people think. It's just about getting a first pick. Like, oh, let's dive and don't die. Let's get the first pick and not give the first pick. The win condition is not too leaguey. It's just like, you need to be really specific about what that means. Some people hate, you know, using the term win condition when they cast. I use it because there are some fights in where, like, teams know we have to force an ultimate. We have to force the transcendence here or we're not going to win the fight, you know?
Yep, that's the thing. We have Org. They don't have a lot of sustain themselves. They're running a Widowmaker Genji, so it's all going to be about the one shot or, you know, get in, get out fast.
I mean, I'm not sure what the sustain. I don't know what the sustain means here because they still have like two healers, and I mean Genji. I guess you mean like damage over time or like I'm not too sure. Not too sure. Oh wow, Stream Elements and Moobot are fighting, and they are both giving the same commands. That's a bit weird.
But one kill is oftentimes all they need, and big one is actually.
But you're right, like you pointed out, like that's the one kill. The first pick is like that's it.
Gonna swap off onto the McCree.
This is such a knee-jerk switch from Morningstar's blue. I'm quite surprised they switch. Like, oh. They're playing. They're trying to counterpick this Genji so hard. That instead of just keeping the Widow and giving yourself a Widow v Widow and just like putting a Brigitte in there, for example, they fucking switch both of them. And I guess okay. I guess that they didn't have a Lucio before. I'm not really sure. Either way, like this, they're like, you aren't going to dive it. So I'll be interested to see how this works.
Huge impact on this hero, but definitely a very.
So I want to hear about the switch.
Smart counter against any kind of team that's running a Genji.
Exactly,
yeah.
And so way fast, you know, he popped off last round. His team is looking for him to do the same thing. Big one.
Look how this forces them back.
Rocking that McCree right now, and that is something that we haven't seen very often thus far. I believe in either.
Why haven't we seen it much?
Game that we've seen, but can be very effective against Danon and that Genji if the deflect is down. And like
What's
we
good,
said
fam?
earlier, Wayfest needed to pop off, and he's starting to do that with that headshot on Luft. And the Line Pro just standing in the middle of Morningstar's blue. And Danon's going to go ahead and unsheath the blade. And anytime this has happened, he's gotten at least 2 kills, except for that one time the Zenyatta scared him away. 2 kills, big one, and Dreg and Eddie going to be...
Well, that's not bad. Let's I'm just going to review that team fight again.
That we haven't seen very often thus far, I believe, in either game that we've seen.
Yeah. So very quickly, you wanna serve me up why we don't see all that much.
But can be very effective against Danon and that Genji if the deflect is down. And like we said earlier, Wayfest needed to pop off, and he's starting to do that with that headshot on Luft.
This is fine.
And the Line Pro just standing in the middle of Morningstar's blue. And Danon's going to go ahead and unsheath the blade.
So you've got a couple of clauses here, which are just starting off with and we needed way fast to get a bunch of kills, and he has, and he gets the headshot, and and Danon goes in with the Dragon Blade, and Brigitte is surrounded by everybody. Try and flow this one a little bit better instead of just saying and this and that and that. Obviously, grammatically, it's not correct. So, yeah. I mean, Ham, you've got to do that. You've got to give me the. If you say something like this is strange, or if you give me any sort of thing that sort of goes with this is uncommonly seen, or if you're trying to identify something that is just not standard. You have to sort of follow that up with why it isn't. Not only is it a great way to sort of demonstrate your understanding, but also a good way to make sure that people learn something. We're talking about adding value here as a broadcaster. This is one way that you can do that.
And anytime this has happened, he's gotten at least...
Yes, I am reviewing the casters, not the gameplay.
2 kills, except for that one time the Zenyatta scared him away. 2 kills, big one, and Dreg and Eddie...
I mean, yeah, again, that's it's a little bit anecdotal, talking about that, getting... Thanks for 2 biddies! Thanks, fam. Yeah. Well, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, we can see the Dragon Blade gets 2 kills. You don't have to tell me anything about that. It's fine.
The other end of that sword hand.
It's okay, man. Yeah, he didn't even want the kills. That was exactly as planned. 100% calculated. We just wanted to get the trance out, right? It's definitely what he's yelling into the team comms. But not a bad defense from We Have Org as well. But Morningstar's really got a lot of free distance on the payload, and which is always a trade you're going to be able to take, especially when you know that the enemy team has already finished the map, and you must do the same if you are to push this into extra innings. Because once again, folks, this is 2-1 for We Have Org, and if We Have Org take this, they will clinch the series. Now, though.
Exactly.
All right, this is not bad. You kind of, what I really enjoy is that you restate the stakes, right? So this is important because We Have Org will take the series if they manage to win this particular map, or if they, that is great. It's something that needs to happen a little bit more because people tune in randomly, and I can see what the score is, right? People can sort of see that it's 2-1 here, but you want to reassess what's at stake, and you want to sort of make that clear. You spent a little bit of time on the he didn't even want a damage analogy, and I think you lose an opportunity to maybe go a little bit more specifically about what happened in the team fight, but I'm not really upset about that. I don't think this is bad. But probably getting ready to throw in a second, I hope, because We Have Org have 4 ults, so it should be quite a fight.
And they're really, really
threw,
close to doing that. Looking at these ultimates, the Valkyrie is going to pop out. No mercy on the side of Morningstar here on the offense. So the heals are going to be available for We Have Org. Urshat are going to go down.
All right, so you're in my opinion, you're still giving me a prelude to the fight after it started. So you're sort of saying what ultimates are going to be available, and the problem with that is that the fight hits a crescendo, and then you choose that's the time to switch to proper to hard out play-by-play, but you need to jump up a few levels. What's even probably more powerful than this is not maybe calling out the ultimates too much, because the fight started right, and you actually sort of build us into this Earth Shatter. You know what I mean? Instead of sort of going from they've got these ultimates and there's the Earth Shatter. You know what I mean? We can have a bit more of a continuity in the way that you build up to this particular moment. Just a minor thing. Again, it's a matter of giving that hierarchy to information about whether it's important or not. So just keep that one in the back of your mind.
Down and get 3, I believe. Wayfat's getting a couple of headshots, but because of the...
Avoid, I believe, just because it's a little bit uncertain. Just try and, if you know something, say it. If you don't know it, avoid saying it.
Those heals, not going to get those kills, but is going to have the wall hacks. If you're going to get held on Junkertown on A, it's going to be right here, but 0.95 meters means someone from We Have Org is going to need to maintain presence on that point, and with that Transcendence, it's going to help his team do that and heal up. 6 people still alive.
It's good. This is really good. This is good play-by-play. It's not too specific. who talk about what needs to happen and what may happen as a result.
We have Org, but no! They're going to get off of the point and get Morningstar's 1 point, 3 minutes and 37 seconds to complete the beat.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with this, man. This is quite good. Obviously, like the slight slip at the start of the fight where you spend a lot of time talking about ultimates, and then, you know.
A couple headshots, but because of those heals, not going to get those kills, but is going to have the wall hacks. If you're going to get held on Junkertown, on A, it's going to be right here, but 0.95 meters means someone from We Have Org is going to need to maintain presence on that point, and with that Transcendence, it's going to help his team do that and heal up. 6 people.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, you see this like the biggest C9 in the history of C9s here. I kind of like this as a way of casting, that it's not super specific here. If you don't want to be that specific, then I think you still did a good job here of like reiterating the stakes, or maybe what was most important. So that's good. I think that was totally fine. Again, a little general. I don't really hate it. You mentioned the distance again, also fine as long as you do it sparingly. But I'm getting like a better feeling of like what is at stake and what needs to be done and all that sort of stuff.
Still alive for We Have Org, but no! They're going to get off of the point and get Morningstar's 1 point, 3 minutes.
I guess that was a slight stutter from you there as well. Obviously, you know, that happens.
37 seconds to complete the beat.
Yeah, Morningstars, they will take at least point A, and they need it, but they're going to have to wait for quite some time before they can recollect themselves for a good coordinated 6-man push, as Dana just diving in there, you know, twinkle toes over here, very light on his feet, getting in those dash resets, and he will have the blade for this next fight. So, well, okay, not the next one. The next one. Caster Curse is real.
You hear it in the deep south, right?
In the deep south, huh? This is pretty good. It's pretty good. Good breakdown of the fight. I mean, you also do a good job of you know, being the heel and just making sure people don't get too excited. You reference Caster Curse, which is fine, I guess. That's the thing that we do.
Janet is going to come back with that drink.
Your pickup is a little bit loose there. Boop, I guess, because you're obviously reacting to it, which I think is fine, because this is a great time to just, you know, have that interaction. This is fine.
Blade, and he's been absolutely destructive with them thus far. Big one, you know, showing a little bit of life here for the first time so far in this map. Wall hacks available.
So your cadence of speech, something I've noticed over the entire broadcast, is that sometimes you just slow it up for not quite sure what your reasoning is for slowing down, but you do. Sometimes I think it's because you're trying to buy some time, and that is okay, but you need to sort of really think about where you use those elongations, and not always every sentence, right? You're doing it a little bit too much sometimes, I think, and you want to try and maintain fluency in your speech, right? Keep a bit of a rhythm there, because you are interrupting your cadence rather frequently, which makes it somewhat difficult to stay in tune with what you're trying to say. So that's just a matter of reps. That's time. You're buying yourself time with these things, which is fine. I think every broadcaster needs to be able to buy themselves time, but just needs to be good at hiding that. Because you don't want people to know you're buying time, but it's obvious, like, well, and it's obvious for me as well, because I can tell you're trying to buy time, bro. I'm out there like, I fucking used to do this all the time. Sometimes I still do this, you know what I mean? It's about masking it though, if you can. And again, like, if you don't know what to say, fuck me. Like, just lean on your co-caster. But you should know right now there's about to be a fight, because you have this aggressive Junkrat push. So I'm hoping that you guys are going to be agile, you're going to be on your toes and ready to sort of move over to the team fight. Boop, you're still talking, so if a team fight happens quickly, I prefer to see you take it, just because of how your roles are defined. If not, I'm sure it'll be fine.
But Junkrat going to try to take him down. That's exactly what's going to happen. Junkrat butters him up, way fast cuts through it. The big one is going to go down. It's a 5v6 for We Have Org.
You told me it was a 5v6. I like this a lot. You kind of transition out from the kill. You spend quite a long time talking about the manner in which that Widow was killed. You know, you could just say it was ganged up on by, you know, the Widow and the Junkrat. But then as soon as I mean, this works really well with the observing, but we switched to a fight, and then you're telling me it's 5v6. I'm like, yo, that's what I like. That's good.
right now. Wayfast being pretty accurate on that Widowmaker, but Line Pro is going to get accurate to Midna's life and take him down. And the Ginny's going to do the same thing. Support's coming in hot for Morningstar's blue, and they are going to get...
I think you're reading the kill feed there, and the only reason why I say that is because you don't really mention the Earth Shatter, and you're sort of talking about stuff that is on the kill feed. I have a suspicion that's you're jockeying the kill feed slightly here, which you want to try and avoid doing because there are ultimates being used in this fight.
Fast being pretty accurate on that Widowmaker, but Line Pro is going to get accurate to Midna's life and take him down. And the Ginny's going to do the same thing. Support's coming in hot for Morningstar's blue, and they are going to get progress from the payload as the rest of We Have Work are in an awkward...
Yeah, you can do a lot more with that, I think. Depends on, like, where your camera is set up. Like, if you're, like, flying around in free cam and you end up having it in a bad place and the fight's no good, then, yeah, you then ride the kill feed. But can't hide that shit from me, boy.
Position behind Morningstar's blue right now, so they're going to have to do something or else either kill themselves or attack or try this pincer move, but the big one is going to get Jofi as they're kind of just trying to reset at this point.
Oh, but the grapple from Wayfast just managed to touch the payload long enough for Midna to get on. Not going to be making too much of a difference in the very end, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, like you mentioned a grapple. You mentioned a grappling hook to the payload, but they've already captured the point. So you're kind of saying like, oh, well, it didn't make a big difference in the end. Well, that's right. It's obviously self-evident because they've taken the point there. So slightly more agility will help you not get hung up on that point.
To touch the payload long enough for Midna to get on. Not going to be making too much of a difference in the very end, though. Twals are actually really good.
You got a good chance here to break down that fight, though. The fight that obviously we got pretty light play-by-play. I mean, being reactive is kind of something you have to do, right? But it's like, if you perhaps, I guess you got to realize that there might not be enough, that sort of thing. It's not a big deal.
With this Junkrat was, you saw him earlier kind of farting around in the back. He's likely going to have a
farting around.
I'm not sure if he's going to be able to regroup with the rest of his team without getting caught up. Junkrat, wherefore art thou, Junkrat? But
so that reminded me, yeah. So that reminded me of like at Homecoming, like the
in the east, and Reinhardt is the sun. Okay, so yeah, we don't get much breakdown on any of the fights that happen around that second stage, which is a little bit regrettable. And you're mentioning sort of the Junkrat presence, which I think is okay. I'm not really sure where you were going with it.
We're kids standing on either side of the hall waiting to dance at each other.
You're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, all right, cool. Just commit, guys. And, you know, because they didn't, they got punished for it. But Twals is going to get the kill on the Ginny. And
so what does this kill mean, though? I'm interested in hearing.
Oh, but no, Big One is going to even it up, so that is not going to be a reset. That's going to be a Transcendence coming out of Dance. The Big One is actually going to be the hotter...
I think it's Dinsei, right?
Widowmaker right now, but Dan is going to try his best to knock him off the high ground. Is actually not going to get any kills thus far. So this has been the quietest his Widowmaker, his Doofus has been so far this series. And Morningstar is looking at that rally, looking at the Graviton Surge.
You're starting. I think you're maybe running a little bit out of gas in terms of what you're talking about. Is Dance okay? The only reason why I thought Dinsei because I remember when he played in Apex and like they had a voiceover intro for him, but that makes sense. I remember he was, yeah, if it's Dinsei, then they did like a, that's how his name was said in the Korea Apex intro.
They definitely have the advantage here with 2 minutes and 41 seconds. And here we go, that is the Graviton Surge that we were talking about. Is the follow-up going to be there? And kind of, as one of the kills is going to come out, and a clutch res from Joe.
Okay, so you asked if the follow-up's going to be there. The voice I was on, that's fine. Then that's fine. So you ask if the follow-up's going to be there, and then you say kind of, but then like I don't know, like who was following up? You know, like where, like what was the follow-up from? Who followed up? I guess or who semi-followed up on it? You know, if you're not quite convinced.
And this is going to be a huge meteor strike. Dan is going to get luck, but whoa, my goodness! It looked like it was a back-and-forth battle until.
Yeah, your flow's not great in this cast because obviously there's a couple of things that you're reacting to on the fly, and it is causing you to derail a little bit.
This has been so far this series, and Morningstar is looking at that rally.
Looking at the
Graviton Surge. They definitely
Surge.
have the advantage here.
And so you're pointing out what ultimates they have now. I realize that. So just maybe try and trim this a little bit. So rally being used now. Graviton Surge ready to come out. They're looking scary.
41 seconds. And here we go. That is the Graviton Surge that we were talking about.
I mean, yeah, so you lose time saying that we were talking about because you just said it. You just said they got a Graviton Surge. So you can just say there's that Graviton Surge because that we were talking about is you trying to stall, but you shouldn't be stalling. You should be like right in here amongst the thick of it.
Is the follow-up going to be there?
The follow-up going to be there, and
one of the kills is going to come out, and a clutch res from...
One of the kills is going to come out, and a clutch. So what's happening now as well, like there's a few different things happening, and you're not taking a breath. So one of the kills came out, that's super non-specific as well, like who got the kill. I guess Morningstar's got a kill there. Then a clutch res comes out, so we want a bit of a breath there.
He's going to save Linda's knife, but toss his own, and this is going to be a
huge meteor strike.
Dan is going to get one.
Whoa! It's going to get one. But I see, you know what I mean, like you're like behind the plate. You're trying to like dig your claws in and get back, you know, on the horse a little bit because things are happening so quickly now. So if you're talking about the Doomfist dying and there's a big Riptire, finish your point, then mention the Riptire. Don't jump across. You already have Eevee reacting to it, so it's not necessarily being missed. There's still the reaction there. You can say, like, oh yeah, you know, Luft goes down, you know. And then you could just mention the fact that the Doomfist is missing. And then obviously the Riptire happens, you go, yep, that's going to be the big Riptire from 12s, and that's going to make it hard for the attackers. You know what I mean? You don't have to catch it on, yeah, you are running uphill but the reason why is because it's a little fast for you. You're getting ahead of, your mouth is getting ahead of your brain, so to speak. And now you're going to start to drown. You're not treading water, I guess, as effectively. So in this situation, you got to realize that it's not important to catch everything. It's more important to catch the important things and keep your speech patterns consistent. Keep it slow or medium pace if it has to be. Like we can, you know, you're being very pinpoint focused in this particular fight, whereas in previous team fights that you were maybe a little bit more overarching. If you know, in this position, you can be a little bit more overarching. It might give you the room here to sort of mention the things that are actually going on instead of as they happen in the kill feed. Like, oh, he's going to get one kill, and then as soon as a resurrect happens, like you say there was a clutch res. It's like, did you even see that res? I didn't see the res, you know, but maybe you did. But if you just read it off the kill feed, then that's like a big fail because you don't want to do that. So try and stick with what you see. If it's on the kill feed and you don't see it, only refer to it if it was like a 2k or more, like something big happening. If it's just like a resurrect or a one kill, mate, you're wasting your time because instead of working with what you've got in front of you, which is actionable and useful footage, and it's a script essentially, it's a script of the game that you can read and cast from, you're like taking stuff that's happening off your screen because you feel like it needs to be acknowledged, but we can see it. We can see it on the kill feed, right? And this is what I said about Panda and Elite the other day. Is that if it's happening on the kill feed, it's there. Like I can see it. I can see there's a resurrect. Now, if there's a resurrect, you could mention Morningstars are back up to 6 players. That's enough. You don't have to say there was a clutch res. Like, was it a clutch res? Well, we don't know if it was clutch or not. You know what I mean? So if you ride the kill feed, it can be super obvious, and you also add nothing to the broadcast. In fact, you detract from it to a degree because that is time where, you know, there could be analysis perhaps or something else. Or you could be doing a more overarching approach if that's what you feel more comfortable handling, which is going to be a better way of casting than this kill feed riding.
Oh my goodness. It looked like it was a back and forth battle until 12 gets 4 kills to end that attack, Cam.
Yeah, so that's a good... yeah, I mean, it's gotten dark already. I mean, I had the window open. It's just been sunset, so I'll turn the lights on in a sec. I don't want to look too... I don't want to sleep because it's so dark. Right, so yeah, good throw. Now, what's the breakdown? I mean, it was a Riptire, right? Big Riptire. I kind of like the way you said it. It was looking like an even fight. In fact, it was actually looking like Morningstars were going to finish the round until the Riptire came through.
Quills has more than redeemed himself for his positioning kerfuffle there towards the beginning of this point C fight. The original tire got 1, the second one got 3, so a much better return on investment. It actually is going to trigger swaps from Morningstar's blue as well as they themselves going onto the full dive with Nijini on that Genji now. So Genji Widowmaker. So
the reason why I like this ham is because you have 2 separate concepts. You have a Riptire getting kills, and you have hero switching, but you're able to accurately and correctly, might I add, link the 2 of these. Like you create a causal link between the 2, which is great because this is how you form a narrative, right? A narrative is you know, a cloud of different concepts that are all linked together by causality or by the flow of the game or the story. And you've done this here. So you've now mentioned that because this Riptide was so nasty, and look, it may not be just because of the Riptide, but it's pretty safe to say that Widow Junkrat are two heroes that want to fuck Junkrat pretty bad, right? I mean, it's not canon. You're not going to see any fan fiction written about it, but they really want to try and counter this pick. So you have created a link here, which is very good. This is something that you, if you're at the top level, you want to be doing instinctively without thinking.
Big one. Oh, finds the drop on way fast, and that's going to be an excellent start.
Yeah, and no.
You don't mention the resurrect, which is fine. We can see that there's a resurrect. Sue with a big host. That is a big host. Thank you very much, fam. Let's go. And everyone needs a stream. Thank you very much for the host, bro. We're doing some VOD review again. For those of you that are new, welcome. I'm reviewing casters right now, so stay a while, and we can hang out. Thank you for that. That's a big host, though. Appreciate it, man.
No res for 30 seconds, so there's definitely an opening for Morning Stars, but Wayfest is going to try to close that with a dance, getting the head.
So that's not too bad, right? That's an example of sort of like doing a little bit of a breakdown about saying like this is an opening for Morning Stars, and then there's a kill, and you don't derail your point completely. You sort of say, and he's trying to close the door. So again, you're able to make a segue between these two concepts a little bit more effectively than you have been sort of prior. You know what I mean? Which I think is pretty effective. Are you going to review yourself? The guy you work with is super good. Speak for yourself. I think I kind of carry that duo. Anyway, so I like that you've linked this. That's pretty good.
Shot from Wayfest Widow. These Widows are both doing really well for their team. It's kind of who's hot in that current moment. And Danon's going to make it pretty cold for the big one. Going down into the grave thanks to those rocks.
Okay, so you're like... you're getting pretty verbose here. It's like it's cold. You know, I can't feel my legs anymore. He's going down into the grave. It's like, this is like the poetic waxing right now. Which you could do that, right? But like, this is an important fight. This is like the end of the map, right? The Widowmaker is popping off in a big way. So that's pretty important. What's up, IKM? What's up, everybody in the stream?
And once again, Dan is hopping off on this Doom Fist. Is he going to be able to get the DMEC on Diva? Why, yes, he is. I'm sorry for doubting you. Gonna stagger out Dragon Eddie as well, Ham.
Good throw, and you sort of refer to him by name there as well, which is, you know, in case there's any doubt you're throwing, that's totally fine to do that. It also makes it feel a bit more conversational, you know.
Dan had heard you. He heard you, Boop. You know, talking smack over there. He's like, I'll show you a poppin' Doom Fist. Yeah.
I'll show you a maybe.
Yeah. So he heard. Yeah. I mean, let's try and take this more into the context of what he actually did there. Because we got a fairly overarching understanding of how the fight went down, but maybe a little bit specifically, why was it good? Was his positioning good? Was his target selection excellent? Was it just cleanup? You know, what was it? Well, there's got to be something there, you know. Thanks for subbing, Matt.
Really Morningstar Blue. There's no way that they can.
Thanks for the gifted sub, Drunken Wolf. I'll see you out there.
Time bank, but they do still at least have one more push to try and finish out this map. We have Org though on the precipice of taking this series against a very close and hotly contested match so far. They want this win so badly they can taste it. Wayfest has popped that Widow's site. Cassie's boss and Jofi are both ready with those.
This is play-by-play right now.
For the kills.
Very good dodge by Najini there.
Okay, that's not a bad throw actually. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Let's go back a little bit to see the start of that fight.
Taste it. Wayfest has popped that Widow's site. Cassie's boss and Jofi are both ready with those support ultimates.
You are buying yourself some time, which is fine, but I mean, you want to try and cut down on that a little bit.
As Janice is looking for the kills.
Looking for the kills, pass it over. I mean, I like that. Like the ooh underneath is also fine. I don't think that takes away from it. One day we'll have good emotes. Yes, I've got some emotes currently being worked on. So stay tuned.
And Najini there using the wall climb to get out of the way.
And sorry, I've got the multiple commands. I probably need to remove Moobot from chat because it's obviously doubling up there, but we'll fix that. It's minor stuff.
A meteor strike, not going to get anybody except for the big one, just the old-fashioned way. Danid saving his team once again, especially with that DMEC, and you're going to want to stagger that out. You do not want to kill Dragon Eddie right now because in 28 seconds, he's going to have to go back to spawn, get back into the mech, and lose all of the...
Yes, thank you. So I think that you kind of swap roles here, which is fine. You kind of break down the fight a little bit, which is totally fine, but because you only got like half of the team fight there in general. And then we talked to us a little bit about the stagger and why it's a thing, why you're staggering in the first place. So I'm happy with this. I like it.
That ult charge.
More to
so
say.
Dragon, unless they're going to try to get him back in the mech, 68% available. So it looks like that's what they're trying to do here. Morningstar's Blues definitely at a disadvantage until Dragon can get that.
Oh, whoa! Thanks for the sub, Gabriel. Fam, I appreciate it, man. One question for you though.
Do you even lift?
Thank you, man. Thanks for the sub and your support. Appreciate it.
Mech back, no defense matrix. They're pretty much rocking only one tank at that point in time, and Love is going to go down with Primal Rage. That is a huge Transcendence going to come out because of Danid steering the dance right off of his pants, and way fast he's going to get into Ginny.
What is this?
Danid one more time. We have Org coming in clutch in the clutchest of moments, specifically Danid. We're seeing that experience. We're seeing that Doomfist clutch up, and we have Org going to push this into overtime. This is going to probably be it, as Line Pro has been taken away from the fight. Meteor Strike already available. Guys, remember, he opens the fight with a Meteor Strike and possibly will close.
Okay, first of all, that was really good. What you did there, you just asked, it was a call to action. That's what we call it in the business, right? You asked the audience to cast their minds back to something, which I'm super happy about. This is a long team fight. I'm not unhappy with the length of you casting this team fight. However, your flow, we're going to go back because there's definitely some things about the flow that were not super great. But first I'm going to turn the light on because I'm looking mad dark in here. Right.
Around with
So I'm just going to go back a little bit to the stagger, to the ooh.
Very good dodge by Najini there, using the wall climb to get out of the way of the Meteor Strike.
That was good. Yep. I like that you point out the dodge.
Not going to get anybody except for the big one, just the old-fashioned way. Danid saving his team once again, especially with that D-Mag, and you're going to want to stagger that out. You do not want to kill Dragon Eddy right now because 28 seconds, he's going to have to go back to spawn, get back into the mech, and lose all of that ult charge. So Dragon, unless they're going to try to get him back in the mech, 68% available, so it looks like that's what they're trying to do here. Morningstar's Blues definitely at a disadvantage until Dragon Eddy can get that mech back. No,
so that was actually an opportunity for a quick throw to color, I think, in this moment, a quick throw to analysis.
Defense matrix, they're pretty much rocking only one tank at that point in time, and Love is going to go down with Primal Rage.
Thank you. Yes, very good. You called out that he goes down with Primal Rage, and you do it succinctly, right? Thumbs up.
A huge Transcendence going to come out because of Danid steering the...
You completely fluffed that. Yeah, huge Transcendence coming out because Danid... Bleh. Bleh, 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 bleh.
Dance right off of his pants, and way fast is going to get into Ginny.
Okay, so like that's an important kill, the way fast kill, but you're busy like trying to recover a little bit there, and you miss the fact that way fast just dicked a Genji with Dragon Blade. Like Dragon Blade out.
One more time, we have Org coming in clutch in the clutchest of moments, specifically Danid. We're seeing that experience. We're seeing that Doomfist clutch up, and we have...
Yeah, so I mean, like maybe overusing the word clutch there, but I like this line of attack with your casting, like coming into the clutchest of moments. You know, we're seeing that experience. We're seeing this Doomfist play, and this is fine because we're in cleanup mode in the fight now. So I'm happy with this.
We're gonna push this into overtime. This is going to probably be it as line.
No, probably. Don't do it. You know all, remember? You're omniscient. You're omnipresent. Try to avoid sort of uncertainty there.
Pro has been taken away from the fight. Meteor Strike already available. Guys, remember, he opens the fight with a Meteor Strike and possibly will...
So I love that because, you know, you tell him, like, he's got another Meteor Strike. He started the fight with a Meteor Strike. He's got another one already, which is great because they say a lot more than just, yeah.
Close the round with it as he's going to go forward, possibly get Tracer. No, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike, like, this is okay for play-by-play, I think, because it's the last fight. Does seem a little bit long, and I think that's also a result of, like, Boot breaking down a little bit of the previous fight, right? I think if Ham gets the lead into this fight and she gets to throw to Boot, I think that, you know, it probably doesn't seem nearly as long. I still think... I think it's okay. The length is okay. The information I'm being given there, like, there wasn't a lot of like nonsense. There wasn't a lot of wasted air. So yes, he's talking a fair bit, but I'm getting information that is actionable, that is sort of intuitive and makes sense. So I'm not really upset about that at all. Yeah, you can maybe shorten it, right? You can maybe shorten it up a little bit, but that's sort of the least of my concerns. Why don't you throw to me, Harbibasaurus? Probably because you fucking took his last fight of the last round. Ham.
Because of the way the spawns work, we have Org are going to win
jest,
this series,
of course. Like I said, that was
3-1
fine.
on the side of Wayfast and Dan's DPS play, but also want to compliment the rest of the team as they all had moments to shine, especially here with Twolz's quadruple kill on Junkertown. We're going to see this here in just 1 second, so he's going to throw that.
Okay, now I want to hear from Evie. Yeah, I want to hear Evie now. So you're like you wrap it and you. Did I do this right?
On Junkertown, we're gonna.
So like you want to wrap it. This like usually the replays give them to the analysis caster unless they're throwing to you.
See this here in just.
This is a play at a game, or I guess it was a replay. Yeah, so just a play at a game. Yeah, so you really want to give Evie like enough room here to break the match down because there's a lot to talk about.
Throw that tire, and he's gonna take.
Like, come on, like, I see you throwing the tire. Right? Like, you don't need to narrate the play at a game for me.
Right.
In fact, this doesn't even necessarily need to be referred to directly. This is just a great time for a wrap up.
And then gonna get the conk kill here right after that.
Yeah, okay.
Ooh, mid-air. That's nice.
Boop. Come on. All right. Yeah, do want to see if there's any breakdown here.
But really, really great work from We Have Org, taking down Morning Stars, who a lot of people thought would stay on top of the standings. But they're actually going to move down because of that loss and that 3-1 map differential. Ham, is this what?
Bro, breathe. Okay. All right. So, sorry about the freeze frame here, guys. Not ideal, but look, you went too long there, but the throw is good. Was this what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was going to be a little bit of a closer game coming into it, but I mean,
why?
In the end, the Doomfist was just such an unusual pick. As we know, these teams, have not had a lot of time to play on this new patch, so Morningstar's forced to think, really quickly on their feet as their mainstay team composition has been kind of thrown to the wind with the.
What was the mainstay team composition?
Patch. But just the fact that Danid can bring out such an unusual hero as the Doomfist is really not just there for the kills, not just there for the disruption, but the zoning as well. As we saw, Line Pro on the Mercy was actually still.
Yeah, so I was about to ask you why it's so important that it has a Doomfist, but you answered that one, so that's good.
Alive at the very end of that last overtime push, but the Doomfist was just able to cut her off entirely from the rest of the team. Didn't even need to get the kill. That's the big thing, is that you just physically can't get past this enormous hulking guy that's standing in the hallway, and the Bunny Blaster not going to be doing too much there. So even though he didn't find the kill, good old Father Time still did a big one for the side of We Have Org, as they will be taking this series.
Breakdown's good. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, if you covered the team composition thing early in the series, then that's totally fine. You did a good job. Right. There's a lot there. I will probably start by saying that this is probably one of the best casts outside of Contenders level casting that I've personally come across. I'll admit that I haven't sort of seen a ton of it. I'm very happy with multiple things. I'll start with you, Boop. First of all, yeah, let's tighten it up. Let's consider where we use our personal anecdotes and whether it's maybe appropriate to do so in that time. Think about how much time you have. Really try and use your intuition about the game and understand where something big's going to happen. I know you've seen enough Overwatch. I know you watch plenty as well. So really try and channel your understanding of the game just to make sure that you can. That's like it's a huge tool on your belt, right? To be able to bring here. Like that should be something you bring as a caster. We talk about adding value. There's the way you add that value. So understanding the game and just leveraging that. So with that first fight at the beginning there, if you built suspense into that, would have been pretty spicy. A couple moments there as well where you just sort of missed the cadence a little bit. I don't mind the overarching style that you have. I would like it to be a little bit more refined, because then you ended up giving me a very pinpoint fight, but it was two pinpoints. So a balance between the detail and I guess the overarching narrative and story of a fight is really important. just try to make sure as well that you don't carry on too much. Now, see, the thing is that you're not carrying on too much after fights doing play-by-play. You're actually carrying on and you're doing a little bit of analysis. So that's not a problem because it's not necessarily wrong. Like I said, I thought when you carried on and did some analysis at one point, there was actually, in my opinion, pretty good. And it was not incorrect necessarily. But just be aware of like the dynamic between the two of you as well. There are some things that sometimes you can't jump in, and or some things you don't need to say because maybe that like... Oh, sorry, I muted myself. The assumption should be that you both sort of know what's going on, or you sort of know how it'll work. So try and focus on that a little bit more. I love the conversation you guys sort of have back and forth. I like that you have some sort of chemistry. It's one of the most important. It's one of the most important things that you can leverage as a broadcasting duo. It's the whole reason why duos stay together. Ham, I think that your analysis is succinct a lot of time and quite good. I think the way you structure a lot of your points is good. I think sometimes you get a little bit flowery, as does Boop as well. I mean, sort of tightening up is very important. Yeah, I thought at the moments we heard you play by play there was really good. I'm generally really happy with the level of analysis we're getting here, but you can go deeper. You can go a step further and give me more of the why. It's like, I guess a good a mental approach is to think that like whenever I give a what, or I give an opinion, or I make a superlative statement or anything like that, then I want to try and follow it up with a why, or at least a justification. I'm not saying that every opinion you have as a broadcaster has to be justified, but I am saying that I do want a little bit more of that. And it's not so you don't seem wrong. It's not so you can justify yourself. It's so you can teach people. So you want to recognize the opportunity for education as a broadcaster, and not just sounding smart, which I'm not saying is what you're doing, but I'm just saying, like, in the grand scheme of things, right? There's sounding smart about something, and then there's educating people, which obviously the latter is definitely going to add a lot more value to the product, and is going to be the kind of thing that people sort of come back around for a lot of the time. So that's the difference between regurgitating some information you already know and portraying your deep understanding of a concept and how elements combine, or concepts sort of combine to sort of provide you with that. Causal links are great, really, really great. A couple times we did get that from you. Like what we see now, the game state we see now is a result of A, B, and C that occurred beforehand. Here's a hero switch, or the Junkrat was so impactful, and that's why, like a great segue, a causal link. That's why we're now seeing this hero switch. Stuff like that is very, very good. In general, both of you, I think, can work a little bit more with like your dynamic range a little bit, your pace, your subtone, your speed. When you're conversational, it's very clear that you're conversational. I think it works really well. I notice you guys are both buying a lot of time here. In some things that you say, like you're slowing down a little bit more to try and, buy yourself some time. If you're a little bit unsure about something, maybe just don't go for it. Or if you've got a half-formed point in your brain, sometimes it's better not to start that point until in your head it's sort of properly conceived, and that might not be until the next team file, the one after, or whatever. For you again, Chris, as well, don't get ahead of yourself, man. If it's slow is the way to go, then go slow. Don't put yourself in a position where you're like completely out of sync with stuff like that. See, Matt's exactly right there in chat. Mr. X says, as long as you give the why, you can literally say anything, and that's true. You could literally say anything. That's why, when we say, he could just come out, he could just tell me he invented the fucking question mark. But if he tells you why, or it tells me why, then it's got a place in the broadcast. It has a spot there. So